Hello and welcome to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You can tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STLSN. You can also use them two Twitter handles for updates on the network, suggestions, comments, anything like that. Or you can email me at rbowlesbyjr314 at gmail.com. We'll get to some NBA playoffs, some Stanley Cup playoffs. Then after that, we'll go through just a potpourri of things, throw some Rams in there, some news and notes, and also the hometown rundown. But as at this time, as usual, we'll start it off with the Cardinals. And if you're a Cardinals fan, you're probably getting tired of the same old cliche, next man up. I mean, even the players are saying it now. You hear them in the interviews, they're saying, oh, well, we just see it as next man up. And you almost just want to say, shut up. Shut up, Matheny. Shut up, Mozeliak. Because they use the same thing, and you're just thinking they're just getting around the question, but this is the perfect time that it actually comes true. Cliches coming true. I mean, every time now, it's just the next man up. Cardinals did play the night, and they won 3-2 against the Minnesota Twins. Lackey on the mound, and just another phenomenal start from a starting pitcher. And Lackey's only gotten roughed up really bad once this season. That was the last game in Colorado where errors and also Colorado gets the B into him. But it's just another top, go down the list and this 5 starters did it again. I mean, you lose the one game in the last week, 4-3 to the Royals on Tuesday, and that day Waka goes 6 2/3, only allows 4 runs. But all of a sudden, the Cardinals have used a little bit of power and aggressive base running, which is something you haven't seen from this team. It's been station to station for the last 2-3 years, really since Matheny's been here. And some of these base running opportunities are hurting us. A lot of pickoffs. I mean, one of your top base dealers, Peter Borges, is only at like 50% on stolen bases. But it's a different Cardinals team than what you're used to. It's almost mid-range of where Whitey Ball was. We're taking the extra base, get you the extra runs needed to win in all these games. I mean, it's been triples and home runs for this team and 2 odd RBIs. I mean, you can go look at the stats and it'll tell you that the Cardinals aren't hitting that good with runners in scoring position. They aren't scoring a lot of runs. And they're not really doing it with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. But that's just the stats. I mean, over these last few games, it's just been 2 out after RBI after 2 out RBI. I mean, in the game where the Cardinals are struggling to score runs, Jaime gets an RBI base hit in the game he pitches. 2 outs. Right before that, a triple RBI by Jay with 2 outs. So timely hitting is starting to be a factor for this team. And some of these guys that you didn't expect to do what they're doing this season, or as the season has progressed so far that you didn't expect maybe a turnaround, but Hayward's starting to step it up. His defense is starting to show up a lot more too, and he's making plays in the outfield, saving run plays in the outfield. But you got a guy like Mark Reynolds, a 220 hitter any other year, and he's up in the 260s this year, filling a hole. I mean, if you took your 2 power positions out for any team and took your top 2 pitchers out for any team, 31 teams would be worried. But this 32nd team in the Cardinals, or excuse me, 30th team in the Cardinals, it'd be 29. It's the next man up, and even if you're tired of hearing it, it's the truth. I mean, Lions came in and had you wouldn't call it a quality start by the numbers, but it's a good enough start. Comes in, just gets 5 innings, only allows the 2 earned runs, gives your team a chance to win. And that's all you need. I mean, they got to start taking the ropes off Lions, though. I don't know how many options the Cardinals actually got left on this guy, but it's time to stop babying. And the rain out Sunday for the Cardinals is almost a blessing in disguise. It almost turned your 6-man, or it's almost turned your 5-man rotation into a 6-man rotation with an extra day off. So it's almost like if you would have played yesterday, maybe that's someone else's start, but now Lackey gets an extra day off, and it just moves on down the list. And it also comes at a perfect time to where you only have 3 days off until the All-Star break, July 14th. So even though you didn't want to see the rain out, it's almost a blessing for the Cardinals where they're trying to hold off on innings for some guys. And these are the kind of games that takes away starts for some of them guys like Martinez and Waka. But you got to let the ropes off Lions at some time and just let him go out there and show what he can do. I mean, I thought they were going to do it last time and just let him go as long as he wanted, no matter what he allowed, but they didn't. And it really seems like they've never done it before. But I think at this point in time, even though they're saying Lynn's going to come back, I think you keep Tyler Lyons on this 25-man roster and send Sokolovich down. Something like that. Because I think in the long run, Tyler Lyons could be an asset to you. Not only in long relief and holding some of these guys back. Maybe you only let a Carlos go 5 starts in one game. Waka, or 5 innings in one game. Waka, the same thing. Use Lyons as a piggyback. Or maybe you just want to get these guys an extra day off, and there's your 6th starter right there in the waiting. And I don't think they're going to do it before the All-Star break. But after the All-Star break, if this team's still rolling like they're rolling, I think you have to consider it really hard is to maybe turning this into a sometimes 6-man rotation. But if you look at it another way, you might not have to do that with the way the bullpen's been pitching. And Lackey going to 8 tonight, Seager's only had to go 1 tonight and got his 2nd save of the season. But just in June, the bullpen's gone 28 1/3 with 27 strikeouts, only 4 walks, and an ERA of .3. And you're halfway through the month. So if you look at it, today's the 15th, so it's less than 2 innings per game with the bullpen, which just shows you what the starters have been doing. But when they come in, they're getting the job done. I mean, you could go through a debate of who's been your 2nd best player this season. Because, Johnny Peralta's obviously first. You can look at a Waka, who's kind of stepped in and taken this rotation over. You can look at a Wong moving into that leadoff spot. You can look at a Garcia. But your guy might be Trevor Rosenthal. I mean, the 21 saves, the .59 ERA. And it's not like that he's been a bad closer, but last year you've had them situations where you were like, when Rosenthal was coming into the game. It was an adventure. It was like the end of Izzy's career when he was struggling, had the injuries. During when he came in every game, You didn't know what was going on. It was going to be exciting. But Rosenthal hasn't made it the ninth inning exciting at all for any team. I mean, they want to talk about Kansas City's bullpen being that shutdown bullpen. But if you go for the three guys for the Cardinals, it really is four guys. With Choate, Manus, and then Seagrass, Rosenthal. And you've had to worry about the bullpen in a way because you've lost two starters and then you lost your eighth inning guy. And then the injury to Seagrass, you didn't know how he was going to come back from that. And his velocity is back to where it was before and has moved up every month this year so far. I think in this month right now, he's averaging about 95 miles per hour per fastball. So, I mean, something you thought you were going to have to worry about has kind of just went under the radar. Not many people are talking about when Seagrass was injured. You're still bringing up the Waka thing, but you're at a point now where you're saying Waka's probably at the best that you've seen him. He's had a couple rough starts ago lately, and they're not bad starts. It's just the Cardinals are getting him a lead, and he can't keep it. And part of that's getting rained out and things like that. But his ERA is only at a 2.45. I mean, there's not many third starters on a team that have a 2.45. And that's what he started the season at, really a four starter. Then I'm just moving him up to 3, going Lyndon Lackey. But you could say he's a 2. You could say Carlos is a 3 or 4, 2.43. I mean, in this part of the season, you're a good fifth starter if you got your ERA right around 4. And the closest person to that's Lackey at a 3.5. So if you look at it in that way, it just shows how dominant your pitching has been throughout this season. And now if you look at it, there's really no saying that they're going to lit up. And with hitting being down and stuff, this might be the way to go for the Cardinals. Or any team if you look at it, because a lot of these teams that built off power and stuff aren't really doing the best in the league. So, pitching has stepped up. And then you got the next man up system. 5 guys out. And 5 guys called up. Or 5 guys moved into spots. And there's been nothing. I mean, since Wainwright been out, you're 28-17. That's the best record in the league in that time span. But you just can't look at the Wainwright injury. You got to look at the Adams injury. You got to look at the Walden injury. Now you got to look at these 2 injuries with Holiday and Lynn, and just, it kind of blows your mind. And I don't know if it's a philosophy thing that the Cardinals got something over the other people, over the other teams and scouts that are telling them this is how to do it. But it's worked for this team, and not many other teams have copied it. I mean, you can kind of complain about what's down there, but you got a guy like Tommy Pham who's on the 40-man and had a good spring training until he got hurt. That could probably still show something. Scruggs and Prescotti. And then you look at the pitching. I mean, the 2 best pitchers in the PCL at the Memphis Redbirds are Tyler Lyons and Tim Cooney. So maybe it's time to start letting the ropes off these young kids and see what they can do. Because you've already kind of molded Lyons like you've done with your other young players. Like you had the years of Carpenter at second, and last year with Wong splitting time with Ellis. Matt Adams coming up with Alan Craig. Grichuk's been up and down, splitting time. So they mold these players for this situation. But sometimes you just gotta let it go. But you really can't complain how they've been doing it. Because it's worked. Tuivailava and Solokovic have been serviceable. You do have to worry about the 25th man and Ed Easley. But I'm starting to think that towards August and September, the Molina's going to be at first a lot. Spelling Reynolds. And Reynolds might spell Holiday in the long run if Holiday comes back after the All-Star break. Just to give him some time off. And Reynolds has been serviceable in the outfield. I mean, you didn't expect this guy to play as good as defense as he has, and you haven't had to complain about him at third, at left, or at first. So it's kind of crazy to see the different ways of doing it for the Cardinals, and it's been different just over the past year since Matheny's been here. Maybe before it was runners in scoring position. I mean, they were batting .320 one year. Another year it was just the base-to-base, the timely hitting, and getting to a certain approach or pitching to get to the guys in the bullpen when Manus and Seagrass and all that, Rosenthal were taking over. And now it's strictly your starting pitching with this timely hitting from certain guys here and there. And now you're hoping that like a guy like Molina, even he was 3 for 4 tonight. He's still in the 280s, I think 287 after this one. He got the Schneid off the Schneid tonight with his first home run. So you're hoping maybe like a guy like him turns around and being lower in the lineup starts producing a little bit more down there. And that's who produced tonight. Molina and Reynolds with the two big hits. You had Jay and Grichuk at the bottom of the lineup. And that was how you got your first run of the night. Jay with the RBI hit. So it's just any given night for the Cardinals. Another cliche, but it's not a cliche for the Cardinals this season. I mean, they're almost proven they're like destined this year to prove all the skeptics wrong. When you're not 21 games over 500 without your ace, without your second pitcher, without your starting left fielder, without your starting right fielder, and your setup man to get to Rosenthal. And I know they're not projected for they're projected for 108 or something like that wins. They're not going to get there, but I mean, if they get to 90 plus wins, that's probably a division winner in this division. But the Cardinals are going to have to go get something for backup, and I repeat myself every week with this. But that easily can't be your 25th man all year. With nothing left on the bench, if Holiday needs a day off or if Reynolds needs a day off. Because Jay's not batting all as well this year. You're going to need bats in there, so Grich is going to get a lot of playing time. So now you lose another bench player to where your bench is Cruz, Cosma, Jay, and Easley. And maybe the Tommy Pham thing or something like that works. But I think you're going to have to go get something that wise. And then with the pitching, even though he's had the errors behind him, and he's had the hijinks, Jaime Garcia has worked through just about everything that you put in front of him. But you're getting to maybe that threshold with him. As you looked in the past, with how many starts you've gotten out of him, before. So I think you kind of need to go get a fifth starter. Maybe, I don't know, they've always kind of gotten a guy that was kind of falling off the radar. And they kind of just plugged him in there. And it's worked. And Edwin Jackson from 2011. I mean, the year before, guys like Woody Williams. Guy like a Kent Bottenfield. So maybe a guy like that. Maybe a Harangue. Maybe he just wants to come and play for a winner. Something like that, to where if something goes behind me, you have a serviceable fifth starter at least. And that's with Lynn coming back. And maybe you don't need that guy. Maybe Lyons becomes that guy and starts thinking this is maybe his last chance. Because he's starting to show that he can get major league hitters out. And if you look at his starts, his strikeouts are crazy compared to most on this team. I mean, he's striking out guys at a high rate. He had 6 in just 5 innings. And before he came up, I think he had 15 in his last two starts in Memphis total. But if this team keeps playing like this, I mean, you're going to hear every single cliche or anything like that in the book. Because it's not supposed to happen this way, and it has been. And you just hope it keeps flowing like this. And with the way that the Cardinals have done it before, you can't see it stop. Alright, we're going to get to the NBA and NHL Finals next, right here on the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You could tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You could tweet me the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STL SN. We'll start this second segment off with the Stanley Cup Finals as they ended the night with the Blackhawks winning the Cup again. And I think, and I keep trying to figure this out, is why it's so hyped up, the NBA Finals over this NHL Finals thing. And I guess it's got to be because ESPN, the big network, ain't the hockey network anymore. They're not really showing hockey at all. They barely show highlights of it anymore. So, I mean, maybe that's part of it, but it could also be like the situation with a team like the Cardinals, the Yankees of the past, the Patriots, the Spurs, where people are probably maybe getting tired of seeing them. So you have that way, and then you have the Tampa Bay being in a market that's having trouble supporting any sports franchise. I mean, the Bucks, the Buccaneers, the Jaguars, the Rays, the Marlins, Orlando Magic. I mean, that state has trouble supporting its teams anyways. So if you're not getting the support in your own home market, you're not going to get a whole lot of support out of this market. Out of your market. And there was probably a little higher rating in St. Louis because of the Ben Bishop factor. I really don't think it was over. The ratings were over the ratings for the NBA. But Chicago won it again first, of course, and it was their first finals clincher at home since 1983. It was the first game in this series in which a team led by more than one goal. And that's a good series, and you thought it'd be a lot more hype series with situations like that. But it was just put on the back burner. And you got to be disappointed in the Blues letting this coach go and Joe Quenneville. Even though it was a long time ago, you're looking at this now, and well, we probably made a mistake in that situation. I mean, the Blackhawks with Quenneville, 17, now 18-1 after tonight, in a series after the game is tied 2-2. After Game 3 in a series, the Blackhawks are 42-14 under Quenneville. That tells you what kind of coach he is. That every year he puts his team in position to win the cup no matter what the regular season says. No matter what it looks like on paper. Injuries or anything like that. He gives his team a chance to win with his coaching ability and being able to outsmart other coaches. And it's probably kind of makes you mad as a Blues fan to see that. And it's probably made a lot of Blues fans mad over the years. They've said the top 4 coaches have left here and then went on to win Stanley Cups. But the Blackhawks have won it again. Big ups to them. And time to start a new year, and hopefully in St. Louis it's a good one. Well, now more the more hyped up series. And the Warriors lead this series 3-2. And it kind of looks like Cleveland's worn out now. And I didn't really could see why, but now you're only playing 3 people off the bench because you're so deep now. You're 8 players deep. I mean, you had Varejao get hurt in the regular season. Now with Kyrie Irving and Love out. I mean, you're running with a short bench right there. I mean, big minutes for James Jones and Mike Miller, who are your 9 and 10th men on that team. They have to play now with all these injuries that are going on. But I don't think there's a debate, win or lose, who's the MVP in this series. And it has to be LeBron. And you can look at Curry's stats and really say he only had really one special game in Game 5. And for the Cavaliers, it's pretty much been Mostov and LeBron, and after that, it's nothing. I mean, the games you won, you've gotten contributions from Delhi, and that's only in one game. You have had a couple games with Tristan Thompson playing well, but nobody after that is giving you anything. I mean, you're down to running J.R. Smith out there now to try to be one of your leading scorers. And every now and then, he shows that ability. But he's proven time and time again, he's not that guy. There's just guys like that are better in the role that he's put in, the 6-man role. A guy like Jamal Crawford, who started for a long time in this league and now is one of the best 6 men in the league for the Clippers. I mean, at the end of his career, Ron Artest had something going like that. But some of these games from LeBron are even unreal, even though he's throwing up a lot of shots. I mean, to me, rebounds and assists count as possessions and points. And if you get 8 rebounds in a game, you're getting your team extra possessions, whether they're offensive or stopping the other team from getting offensive. And assists, of course, lead to points. I mean, 44, 8, and 6 in game 1. 39, 16, and 11 in game 2. 40, 12, and 8. 20, 12, and 8. And then 40, 14, and 11. In game 6, he would have to get 16 assists. And for him, it's doable to average a triple-double so far in this series. Plus, get the 10 rebounds and the points. Well, obviously, he doesn't need the points, averaging 40 a game. But there's really nothing after that. I mean, in game 4, you only had 7 bench points. In game 5, I don't think there was a bench point after the halftime for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And Golden State's just running player after player out there to beat you. I mean, you have guys like Draymond Green, Harrison Barnes, Andre Iguodala, David Lee, Sean Livingston. Guys that really haven't even made that big of a contribution this season. If you looked at it through the eyes of everybody else, but they're just so deep. Andre Iguodala is a starter in any other team, but certain guys, when they play in this league so long, are starting to go for championships. And you've seen it all around. I mean, look at a guy like Ray Allen, who was ready to come and be the 10th man on the Cleveland Cavaliers to get a championship. I mean, Sean Livingston was a player that came out of high school who knows how long ago, and has come back from plenty of injuries, and then it's now Curry's backup and playing very well. So Golden State just has way too much at this point for LeBron and the Cavaliers to keep up. But if you can get Curry into one of them games like he had in game 2 where he had the 5 of 23 shooting, they still have a chance if you get some other point production. It can't just be James and Mozgov. You have to get something from somebody else. I mean, Tristan Thompson's a good player, and he's had a decent series, a lot of rebounds in this series, but he's not scoring every night. And you heard Adam Silver kind of talking about that maybe it's not having enough preseason games, and maybe it's not having enough training camp, and why these players are getting fatigued in the playoffs. But with the Cavaliers right now, and these players that are playing now, that were 7-8 deeper in this team didn't have the minutes to build up the stamina you need. I mean, I always want to kind of go and say, well, maybe practice, get you to that point. But you're not going hard for 48 minutes in practice. I mean, you're not going out and diving after every ball and all that. So maybe I put a little too much emphasis on practice. But you also can't have these secondary players shooting bad shots and things like that. I mean, it's not like LeBron's going every time and shooting some great shot. And neither is Steph Curry for Golden State in that matter. But you can't cost yourself points if you're the Cavs, because you got guys like Curry and Thompson who can get streaky, and where two possessions could be a 6-point swing on them. And so it's going to be hard for the Cavaliers to find a way to stop Golden State's deepness without finding somebody else that could score. You can't put this on LeBron. I mean, he's throwing up almost 40 shots every game. And that's the only way they're having a chance to win. Because if he wasn't throwing up every shot, you'd have someone else throwing up the shots. And they're not going down for the rest of these players. So I can't really say this series is over. But it's almost getting there. And you'll probably see it in the first half how worn out Cleveland is. Because if they come out flat in that first half, with a team as deep as Golden State is, it's probably a done deal. Alright, on to some other things is the NHL Game Center and DirecTV had a lawsuit pending against it for the way that their bundle package works, in which you have to pay for all the out-of-market games. Now, every league has something like that. I think it's NBA TV, it's MLB Extra Innings, the NFL Sunday Ticket Package, and then NHL Game Center. But the suit attested that it was illegal for DirecTV and the NHL to do that, buying a package instead of singling out the one game that people wanted. And a few years ago they did it with this Sunday package, but it didn't last that long, and they've been running the same way ever since, where you buy the whole package and you get all the out-of-market games. And if you kind of look at it, at first it seems fair. You pay for the package, and that's what you get. But if you're like a guy that had to move for his job or move for a family or anything like that for any kind of reason, and you can't afford that whole package, it's kind of a bummer, and it is kind of wrong in a way to me. Because let's just say, like I went and got a job in Texas or something, I'd be kind of disappointed if I went down there and couldn't watch St. Louis sports, and I had to pay an exorbitant amount of money for a package that I'm only going to use one game for. So, I could see where these people were coming from and saying that, hey, I just want this one game right here to watch the team I want to play. I don't need all this other stuff. And I don't want to pay for all this other stuff. So it's not really a big game-changing thing unless you're a big NHL fan. Because now if you live in New York and you had to move there for work, you can now singularly buy just the package for the Blues. And they're not going to lose money off this because the bundle's a certain amount you get this. They're going to monetize this to where they're going to make more money off this off every single game. It's probably going to be a certain percentage more than what it is right now if you split it up. So, I don't know how it's going to work for the other packages. This is probably going to open up Pandora's box for all these little package things going on. But if you have, one of them packages, this is, and you only want that certain thing, it's kind of a good thing for you. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with the hometown rundown and some randomness after that. This is the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You can tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STL SN. Alright, let's start this segment off as we usually do with the hometown rundown. And we'll start it off with the River City Rascals. As Tuesday, they started a 3-game series at home against the Florence Freedom at T.R. Hughes Ballpark. In Game 1, the Rascals took the lead twice, but late in the game, a 5-run inning for the Freedom leads to an 11-4 loss. And the good news for the Rascals, though, Taylor Art extended his hitting streak to 10 games with an RBI single in the second inning. Game 2 saw the Rascals even the series. They won 8-1. Tim Coons extended his good pitching streak and getting his third win. He pitched 6 2/3, allowed 3 hits, 1 earned run, and had 5 Ks. Danny Cannella gave the Rascals an early 3-0 lead with a 3-run home run. 4 Rascals had multi-hit games in this game, including a 3-hit game for shortstop Josh Silver. Rascals pitching was also good as they only allowed 3 hits for the whole game. In the rubber match of the series, Florence jumped out to a first inning 4-0 lead, but the Rascals scored 1 run in 5 different innings to give the Rascals the win. The bullpen went 7 2/3 of scoreless innings to hold the Freedom at bay. 8 Rascals collected a hit, all 9 reached base. Left fielder Brian Hansen had 4 hits and 2 RBIs, and right fielder Zach Kamamedai went 3 for 3 with 3 RBIs. The Rascals started a new series on Friday. They at home played in the Normal Corn Belters. Game 1 saw the Rascals win their third straight 10-3. Joe Shano got his 4th win on the year, going 7 innings. He allowed 9 hits, 3 earned runs, no walks, and 5 Ks. Catcher Josh Flutie went 4 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Shortstop Johnny Morales had 3 hits and 1 RBI. In Game 2, after an 87-minute rain delay in 10 innings, the Rascals won the game 8-7. It was the 4th straight win for the Rascals. The game was tied 7-7 in the bottom of the 10th when Curran Riddell singled in Josh Silver to win the game for the Rascals. The Rascals are now 2-1 in extra inning games. The Rascals could have gone for the sweep in Game 3, but Mother Nature would have none of that, as the game was rained out. The Rascals' record is now 16-10, and they will start a series with the rival Gateway Grizzlies on the road on Tuesday. And just for a good note about that ballpark out there, is it was rated the number 22 best independent minor league park baseball stadium in North America. So just gives you another good reason to go out there to good old T.R. Hughes and support the young kids and their dream to play bigger and better baseball. But it's kind of cool to see something like that getting recognition. 22nd best in North America. That includes a lot of stadiums and a lot of independent teams, just including the Frontier League. So nice to see the Rascals off to a good start, and hopefully they keep it going for the rest of the season. St. Louis FC had a game this weekend, and they played at home against the Harrisburg City Islanders at Worldwide Technology Soccer Park. Harrisburg had most of the first half chances, and it finally led to a goal, as in the 37th minute the Islanders scored, and they made it 1-0. The game went into a weather delay early in the second half, and after that weather delay, it seemed like FC turned it around. A lot of shots, not letting the Islanders in the offensive zone a lot, and it finally led to a goal as in the 70th minute, Sam Fink scored to tie the game at 1. And that's how the game would end for the 4th consecutive time for St. Louis FC. Goalie Alex Can made 6 saves in the game as he played very well and stopped a lot of good chances for the Islanders. It runs FC's record to 3-5, 14 points in the USL. They play again in the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup on Tuesday against the MLS team Sporting Kansas City. Game starts at 7:30 out there in KC. That's pretty cool that this team gets to go see where they're at against the big boys. So a lot of these players that are trying to make it to the MLS, get to see how they play against players that are doing well in the MLS. And hey, it's kind of fun with the Cardinals and Royals series just ended. You start another I-70 series, even though it's a minor league team versus a major league team. It's kind of fun to see your team get out there and get some exposure. Definitely for a team in its first season, getting to go to one of these games in the Lamar Hunt Opus Cup against one of these MLS teams. So nice to see them still playing well and also getting points. Still not losing these games at least, even though you would like to start getting the 3 points for the win. Now let's bring back on a little bit on this date, as we're going to do one of them. Is on this date in 1964, the Cubs traded Lou Brock to the Cardinals for Ernie Bergoglio. Now the great stat on this is how it's worked out for the Cubs. Division titles since 1964. Cardinals have 12, the Cubs have 5. National League pennants, the Cardinals have 10, the Cubs have 0. And in World Series, the Cardinals have 5, the Cubs have 0. So a major trade on this date back in 1964. And that trade actually spawned the Cardinals to a World Series this year. Lou Brock made an impact on that team as soon as he came on. And then you know the rest is history after that. For some little news and notes, Kim English, former Mizzou guard, will join Frank Hayes' staff in Tulsa. That is his former coach. UFC title was unified this weekend as Fabricio Werdum defeated Cain Velasquez at 2:13 of round 3 with a guillotine choke. He is now your UFC heavyweight champion. And today, the Padres fired manager Bud Black after a record of 22-33. Former MLBer Dave Roberts, who's most notably known for that Yankee series where he stole a base and scored a big run for the Red Sox to come back and win that series after being down 3-0. He'll be the interim manager for now, as a search for the interim manager would begin immediately. And disappointment with the team that a lot of people thought were going to be good and a power-hitting team, but you're not playing in a power-hitting stadium. You'd almost rather the Cardinals be there. Because at this point, it really doesn't matter if they're in Busch Stadium, who's most widely known as a pitcher's park anyways. But you can't expect something that's never happened by bringing in offensive power, but everybody's had them big offensive years in that park, even with moving the walls in and stuff like that. So we'll get to some Rams news real quick, and the first thing I want to talk about was the Rams are going to receive social media training from Social Media Sports Management. The staff includes Rams assistant head coach Dave McGinnis, former Ram linebacker and last year's sideline reporter on the Rams radio, Will Witherspoon, and St. Louis attorney and sports agent Bob Lanville, among others. The Rams are the first NFL team to use this service, but college teams Auburn and TCU are to follow. And this is just something that, why, I guess if you got to spend money on it, why not? Do you really need some training on what not and not to say? And I guess some people do, and it does affect your career if you put something stupid on Twitter. But I hope they don't stop a guy like Chris Long, who's hilarious on Twitter and doesn't back down from criticism for people on Twitter. He goes right back at them. Hopefully that doesn't affect something like that. Or Tavon Austin's random one-word tweets that nobody understands. But do you really need this point in time? Are people that immature that you have to pay a group to say, hey, don't do this? It's kind of like being in middle school or high school or something where the teacher has to tell you, don't do this. This is what you're doing wrong. And this is another way to make money. And of course, the Rams are going to be the first NFL team because an STL attorney is part of the staff. Their assistant head coach is part of the staff. A former Ram, also a former Titan, played for Jeff Fisher for a long time, is part of the situation. So it was going to happen either way. And NFL teams can just hand out money now and still make millions and millions of dollars. So is it something necessary? No. But is it something for the NFL to say, hey, look what we did. We tried to help these people and blah, blah, blah. That's more what it's for. It's for to say, hey, we tried. We're showing you we tried. We tried to stop this. Don't blame the team. Blame the individual. Some more Rams reports is HOK put out a new video updated on the stadium with the narrator being Joe Buck. Now, for people to say that he hates St. Louis, like they always want to do, he's kind of been proving it over the last few years that he's all about getting this football stadium here. And it doesn't make any sense of a guy that has to have a biased opinion being on a major sports network and all that. And people want him to say, I love St. Louis every chance he gets. Well, he's not going to do that. Definitely during the World Series or playoff games. It doesn't make any sense for him or his job. And I wonder if there's other markets out there that say the same thing. Like, oh, he always talking bad about us and blah, blah, blah. Because he's the main guy. He's the only guy you really hear. And he's not shy about backing up his opinion. Or even putting out there his opinions. But on the video, this is what he said about St. Louis. St. Louis is a quintessential American city. We treasure our neighborhoods, our history, our traditions. But what makes St. Louis a city is why I always call St. Louis my home. It's our people. Our people make St. Louis a great baseball city, a great hockey city, and by every measure, a great football city. Really revitalizing downtown is essential to the city of St. Louis, and this is after our opportunity. And then, of course, it goes on to show all the renderings of the football stadium plus the MLS version of the stadium. So, one of the top guys in sports right now is Joe Buck. And he's sitting here clamoring to get you on a football team. Going on these radio shows. Going on the TV channels, Fox 2 and Channel 4 and Channel 5. And then doing something like this. He didn't have to do none of this video. I mean, I doubt he got paid for it even though he doesn't need the money. He didn't have to do this. But he's doing it to keep football in our town. And obviously he loves football and he loves our town and he wants to see it here. Obviously he's old enough to be part of when the Cardinals left. And probably got a lot of hearing it from his dad about all that. And probably didn't like being without football. And he's proved that by going on these shows and saying, we have to get this done. We need to do it this way. We should have done it before, but now since we're at this point, let's get the ball in the roll and let's do it this way. So it's nice to see that a guy like that is clamoring for our town. Because there's not many guys out there to do that for their towns that are as big as Joe Buck is, which most aren't anyways. But there's not a lot of people going out there and saying, hey, we need to do this and this and this to our town. He's doing it at every chance he gets. So stop the hate on Joe Buck for hating the Cardinals or hating St. Louis. Because he's proving you wrong every chance he gets. And this could have a lot of heaviness and a whole lot of weight in people's hearts. Saying, hey, the lead guy for the NFL on Fox is saying we need football here. So maybe it's time to get on that side and want football here. So to move on to another Rams note, as we are Rams full in this last segment. Ian Rappaport of NFL Network reported one priority for the Rams is locking up quarterback Nick Foles to a long-term deal. The target for that long-term deal is prior to the season. Now, this is something that's got to be a little worrisome if you've looked at the past of the St. Louis Rams. Definitely with quarterbacks. You don't know what this guy can do yet. You've only seen the one good season a few years ago. And then last year he got hurt. So I don't know if the Rams are getting some kind of inquiry that he wants kind of a long-term but good money deal for both sides. Or what? But is it really time to give him a contract right this second? I understand he only has a year left and you don't want that turnaround that quickly. But he hasn't proven that he can sustain being a quality quarterback yet in this league. I mean, you liked the 21-2 he had 2 years ago, but that wasn't a 16-game season. Michael Vick was in a few of them games. And then last year being injured, before he got injured, it wasn't like he was just lighting up like he was the year before. So I think it's kind of worrisome, front office wise and coaching wise, that they're already set on locking this guy up. And maybe they've seen something from a training camp. I don't know. I'm not done understanding what he's doing, but is a training camp just kind of like a glorified flag football game? And actually, it's probably less than a glorified football game. A flag football game is probably more glorified than what they're doing right now in training camp. So I don't see where the Rams could want to do this unless they got the inquiry that he wants to get a team-friendly deal going and wants to be here to try to set this team up for our future. That's the only way that I could see the Rams even thinking about it prior to the season. Now, maybe during the season after 5 or 6 games and he shows what he can do with less than what he's ever had before, then yeah, maybe you look at something like that. But not when you don't have the talent around the guy at wide receiver like he's had before. And last year was nothing to write home about. It doesn't make quite the sense to me of why it's even a thought right now to sign this guy before he's done anything for this team. And I'm not being down Nick Foles. I loved the trade. It's actually a smart trade with all the draft picks and things you got out of it. But are you ready to name Nick Foles your future today with what you've seen? Because I'm not. You got a better chance of me being happier about Austin Davis being your future than Nick Foles at this point. Because they basically had the same stats last year, except for Austin's might have been a little better. So maybe they're seeing something that we're not seeing with the training camp and things like that. But looking at his play and looking what you put around him, except at running back, I can't see even a little point in that. So we'll see what goes on there. And I just wanted to bring something up now. I kind of forgot to do it while I was talking to Stanley Cup. But I kind of think that the NHL should move around their season to where you're not ending your playoffs in June. And this goes back to why did all of a sudden the Stanley Cup didn't matter as much this year as the NBA Finals. You're playing a cold weather sport in almost summertime. Now the NBA has talked about shortening their season down. But maybe since the NHL playoffs, many people think that it's all about the playoffs and not the regular season. Maybe you shorten that down maybe 10 to 15 games. Maybe you go down to like a 66 game season or something like that to get to the playoffs a little faster. And it puts more excitement into the game if you're going to have all these teams in over half your league in the playoffs anyways. And maybe you don't end it in June and maybe you end it more like in March, where it's still kind of cold, spring's kind of just coming in, to kind of keep people interested in your sport a little more, because baseball hasn't started at its peak yet, and it's not really there yet till now and going into the All-Star break after you're more than past the halfway point of the season. And not many people are watching the NBA regular season at that time because they're in the same situation that the NHL is, with their being over half their league in the playoffs. So I think putting it more in the winter months and towards the fall months would be beneficial for an NHL. Because a lot of people aren't watching at the beginning of the season anyways because of the playoffs in Major League Baseball. So I was thinking about maybe if you start in August, you got September, October, November, December, January, February. That's your 6 months. And then the March of March is kind of like your March Madness for the playoffs, even though that kind of conflicts with March Madness and NCAA. But a lot of that is really just the championship games for the SECs and the bracketology and stuff. I don't know if that's as big as the tournament itself. And maybe you go a month further back to where you bounce out of the playoffs for the MLB in October. Then it goes into your stretch season for the NHL, so people have something to switch right over to. Instead of not having a lot of more choices because you're not really all into the NHL season or the NBA season at that time. Plus with football being on. So I think you got to kind of go with an alternate choice with the way they do their season instead of trying to keep it up with the NBA and trying to battle them for that third sport. They got to start doing their own thing. And I also think that they should kind of start their own minor league system like they did, but also put it in cities like St. Louis and teams that don't have these minor league teams that start their own league during the summer to help revenue with these teams who are, a lot of these NHL teams are in the red money-wise. So I think there's a lot more things you could do with just shortening down the season and kind of move it around where it's not back-to-back with NBA, NHL playoffs, and the NFL season. Because if you went my way, the Super Bowl's the beginning of February into January, then you're deep in your season almost to the playoffs. So now you go from the Super Bowl to the who's going to make it into the playoffs for the NHL. And I'm not saying I'm right on it. I'm just saying there's another way to kind of make your sport differentiate. Not going to try to repeat the word again. I can't say it. But to make your sport different than the other sports, instead of kind of clamoring back to back with the other three sports at the same time. Same thing NBA is doing. They could also do the same thing that I'm talking about now too. But it seems like their ratings aren't as having trouble as much as the NHL ratings are. So I think it would be better for something like that from the NHL. Alright, that's going to do it. My name's Robert Bowlesby, and this has been the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network.